saying how it's been.
Welcome to Arts Build's Friday Community Zoom. We have a wonderful lineup of guests this morning, but before we get started, I want to share a few announcements. One of which is that Arts Build is excited to be participating in collaboration with the Tennessee Environmental Council this year in Tennessee Tree Day. And if you see behind me, you can see all those little trees up there. So we have 87 people who participated, and they'll be picking up and planting 655 trees as part of Tennessee Tree Day, which is this Saturday, March 20th. So thank you for everyone that signed up and is participating and is going to be planting trees this weekend. It's a great effort, and I think the Tennessee Environmental Council said that there is upwards of 60,000 trees that are getting planted across Tennessee. So bravo, and thank you to all who will be coming to pick those up today and tomorrow from us. I'd also like to send out another reminder that our mission support application will be due in 2 weeks on Wednesday, March 31st. We'll also be hosting 2 info sessions for anyone who plans to apply this coming Monday and Tuesday. So I have sent out the information specifically to people who have indicated that they will be applying. So just a reminder for those of you who haven't already indicated that you will be applying to please be in contact with us about that grant application. We're also asking that everyone please take some time to fill out your Americans for the Arts COVID-19 impact survey. Even if you've already completed it previously, which I know many of you have because we have sent out that information, it's important that you go back in and update that information. That information is really important and helps us have not only have real-time data on the pandemic and the effects that it's having on the arts sector, but also it's going to help us continue to advocate for the arts sector funding. So I'm going to plot the survey in the chat. So if you have some time, please go visit the Americans for the Arts COVID-19 survey and share your information. And I think that's all the announcements we have for us from Arts Build. Amy is not on the call. So I would like to get started with our wonderful lineup of speakers, guest speakers that we have today. And our first person that I'd like to invite to speak is Tim Henderson, who is the Executive Director of Humanities Tennessee. And he is here with us today to talk about, just share about his organization and also their upcoming grant opportunities. So Tim, I'm gonna give you the floor and feel free to share any graphics.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you all for this invitation to join you today. It's wonderful to be with you, and just want to take a few minutes to talk briefly about who Humanities Tennessee is and what our grant opportunities look like throughout the year, and then of course to entertain any questions that you might have. So I am Tim Henderson, the Executive Director of Humanities Tennessee. We are a smallish nonprofit 501c3. Our offices are in Nashville, but we're a statewide organization. So certainly love to work with organizations all over the state and are always looking for new opportunities to work with folks in Chattanooga. So I'm really excited to be here with you all today. Let's see, at some point last year, actually, we were really thrilled to have an opportunity to come and talk with you all. So we're glad to be back. And at that time, I think we were talking about the opportunity to apply for financial support through the CARES emergency relief opportunities that we were participating in as the state affiliate for the NEH. And I want to take just a second to talk about that affiliation because it's relevant in an upcoming opportunity that we'll talk about sort of toward the end in just a couple of minutes. So we, as I said, are a 501c3. We're a statewide nonprofit organization, but we are the official state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. So like the National Endowment for the Arts, which has arts agencies in every state and territory, so does the NEH have organizations that represent each of the states and jurisdictions and territories. Also very honored to have James McKissick on our board of directors, and James has been with us for a few years. And hi, James. I don't see everyone, but I'm sure you're on this call and want to say hi. So as the state affiliate for the NEH, we do run our own programs. We administer public humanities programs all over the state ourselves, but we also do have a re-granting program ourselves where we grant out funds to support public humanities programs to other organizations. That is all told about $100,000 a year program for us. There are different funding mechanisms, so all of that doesn't go through our general grant program, but all told through all of our funding mechanisms, we re-grant out about $100,000 roughly a year. So what we're re-granting out is federal funding that comes to us through the NEH, and then we re-grant that out through competitive grant opportunities. There are some limitations, therefore, on what we're able to support, but we'll talk a little bit about that. As you all are arts organizations in Chattanooga, a lot of what you may be doing with your public programming, while it is arts programming, may very well have humanities components and thus would be eligible to receive support for us. I want to spend a few minutes talking about that. There are some fine distinctions as well as some really clear ones. So I'm here also to entertain questions about what's eligible, what might be eligible, and what's not eligible for us to support, because we are, as I said, re-granting public funds. So we have a few grant opportunities. I'm going to try to share my screen. This will be a little bit easier than my just throwing words at you. I think if I can do this fairly simply, I will show you our website as is relevant to what we're talking about. If you go to humanitiestennessee.org and follow the programs and grants, this will get you to where we are right here. So this page will just generally lay out our granting mechanisms. A couple that we want to hit on today and entertain any questions about are our general grants, which again are statewide grants. In fact, all of our granting opportunities are statewide. A couple of notes about the general grant round, and I'll go ahead and click over here. I'm hoping that you'll see what I'm seeing. You might notice if you look for information about our general grant round, it's a bit more daunting. It is a little bit more complex process to get through that grant round, that grant opportunity than the opportunity grants, which I'll talk about in just a second. And also, I will say, as a bit of a caveat, this deadline is looming, as you can see, hopefully right here. We start taking inquiries for applications to the general grant round in the 1st of February. We have revamped our entire general grant program this year. So there are things we're tweaking as we go through this process. But the draft deadline, and this year we are for the first time requiring drafts for grant applications, that is coming up. So we're about 10 days away from that draft deadline. That's not to say you could not successfully put an application together. If you've got a humanities program in mind and have that, the nuts and bolts of that somewhat fleshed out, that's certainly time to request an application and get that application submitted to us by the 29th. But I throw all that out there with just a bit of a caveat. That is a kind of time crunch, especially as we're feeling our way around through these the new, somewhat more complex and totally online now application process. But this is an annual grant opportunity. And so if you missed the deadline this year, just please know that this is an opportunity that comes back every year. We start that around the first of the year, and then somewhere around the end of March, we start closing that deadline for applications. By mid to late April is our deadline usually for accepting final applications. And then we adjudicate those throughout the end of April and May, and then make those awards mid-May. There's more here on our website, and I won't necessarily run through all of that, but I would encourage you to take a look. If you think that the work you're doing with your organizations have humanities components, I would encourage you to look at this and consider us as a resource for supporting that work. We do a lot of work with arts organizations who are doing arts and humanities programming. A little bit further down, there is a section on criteria. This is where I'd like to spend eligibility. I want to spend just a moment here talking about what kinds of organizations are eligible. So, we don't support only humanities, solely humanities organizations. All manner of nonprofits and cultural organizations, schools, libraries, any sort of community organization that does public programming could be eligible. Where I wanted to make a note is what sorts of projects we cannot fund with our grant funds. And specifically, as might apply to everyone at ArtsBuild, I'll note that right down here, sort of toward the end, arts activities and performances that are solely about arts creation or performance, we simply cannot support those kinds of projects. They're simply ineligible in our grants program. But when there is an interpretive, analytical, contextual component, so if you're doing work that has a performative component or a creative component, but also does analysis, interpretation, that becomes humanities and therefore would be eligible for us to support those programs. So I would just encourage all of you all to think about what you're doing in terms of public programming and see if it has that sort of humanistic component. If you're doing analysis, interpretation, et cetera, then we would consider that to be in the realm of humanities, and therefore that would make it eligible. But solely performative or creative projects, we would not be eligible for us to support. So you may have questions, and I want to be sure that we've got a few minutes to entertain those about what's eligible, what's not. I also do, though, want to take a quick second to look at other grant opportunities that we have that don't have that looming deadline. So we do have a rolling deadline in our opportunity grants fund, and that these are for smaller organizations if your budget's less than $150,000 a year. And there's also smaller grants, so they're capped at, they max out at $2,500 each. But these have a rolling deadline, so we work with you throughout the year whenever you're doing this work to support that those humanistic public programming components of your work, if you meet those eligibilities requirements. Again, what's not eligible, those really don't change whether they're opportunity grants or general grant projects. That's simply based on what we're allowed to support or not. So again, that solely performative or creative project we couldn't support through the opportunity grants. But again, anything with the humanistic element where you're analyzing, examining, thinking about art history, aesthetics, social context, all of that sort of thing becomes humanities and is therefore eligible. But I really did want to point to the opportunity grants as a funding mechanism to support your work throughout the year. So if you've got those sorts of projects in mind, please reach out to us. You can do that here on our website, we have direct contact by email through the website. You can get in touch with our director of grants at the bottom of any of these grants pages, as well as our phone numbers. Now, I will say a brief caveat, and that is because of COVID protocols and public health concerns and that sort of thing, we're all working still remotely and have been for the past year, many of you maybe too. So just know if you leave a message at the office number, it may take a couple of days for us to get back to you. Email, we're checking throughout the day. So if that's a possibility for you trying to contact our staff, we'd encourage you to use that as sort of a first point of contact. We don't know when we're going to be back in the office, but we're starting to wade back in now as the staff are being sort of vaccinated here and there. So one other thing that I want to point out, again, when the last time that we were in front of you all, we were talking about the CARES relief grants, and there were organizations, part of Arts Build, who did apply to CARES, several from Chattanooga. Not all of those were funded, but there were a few that were doing really solid humanities programming and did get funding from us through the CARES Act. All in all, last year with CARES, we granted out about $550,000 around the state in 2 grant rounds. We turned that entire grant program around from really inception through paying out the last of the grants in about 3 months. It was a very quick turnaround to create and administer that program. We wanted to do it quickly. We wanted to do it deliberately, but we did deem those to be emergency relief funds, and we were trying to get those out to organizations as quickly as we could. You may have noticed, as part of the American Rescue Plan that just was very recently signed into law, there was funding in there for cultural organizations. So the NEA received funding through that, as did the NEH. We don't know the nuts and bolts of that. We don't know what we will receive. So everything I'm saying here is sort of, limited in by what we know and don't know right now. We do expect that we will get some funding to reallocate to cultural organizations around the state. From what we can tell right now, again, very limited in detail, but it looks like it will be more than what we received through the CARES funding. So all of that funding last year, save a very little bit that we reserved just to pay someone to administer that program, we reallocated to cultural organizations. So we got about $558,000. We re-granted out $550,000 to over 100 organizations around the state. We don't know what, again, as I said, what we will get as a part of the ARP relief plan, but we do expect to get something. I would encourage you you'll see at the bottom again of all of our web pages, there's a subscribe to our newsletter link. That if you subscribe to that, it is not an overwhelming newsletter. We give that out a couple of times, about every 2 months. So it's not a big inbox wait. But if you subscribe to that, you will get by the newsletter, as we get more details and that grant program rolls out, you'll get information there. But we would like to stay in touch about the details of that as they become available. So if you're interested and don't get the newsletter or don't get that word, please reach out to us. And as we know more about what that re-grant opportunity will look like, we'll give you the details on that. So with that, I'll just make myself available to answer any questions you've got for clarification or anything specifically about what we can and cannot support.
Thank you so much, Tim. That was a lot of great information. We do have a question, but before we get to your questions, if you don't mind, Tim, we have another presenter who needs to hop off at 11 o'clock. So I'm just going to invite her to speak really quickly. And if you all can save your questions for Tim till after I have Stephanie come on. So Stephanie Delioki is joining us from Community Consultants, and she's going to make an an announcement and talk about the Bethlehem Center's Community Connection Summer Grants Program. So Stephanie, if you want to give us an overview of that grant program.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I'm just going to do a brief overview of an opportunity that's available, and Miriam has the PDF document that I'm sure she'll post. So for the past 20 years, there has been support for summer programming for vulnerable youth in Chattanooga. And the funder this year wants to continue it, but this time it's going to have a little different spin to it. They want to help basically strengthen the relationships between the arts community and Christian organizations or Christian messaging for vulnerable youth this summer. So there are going to be approximately 20 grants available with a general funding source of about $5,000 to give to different organizations to help support their programming. And on top of it, we're really excited this year, we're doing something a little bit different, where there's also going to be a professional videographer sent out to each site to do a film, some sort of film that will help meet your needs to explain the good work that you're doing. And that would be yours to keep as part of this project. We're still working out the timing of how long those videos will be, but we're really super excited about it. The Bethlehem Center is going to be the administrative arm for this one, and there will be applications due on April 1st. So I know I've spoken to a lot of people. I see familiar faces on this call, so I don't want to take up too much time of reiterating things that you already know, but does anybody have any questions that they want to know about this? Okay, well, the details are listed in that PDF form. It's going to be an application that's due on the 1st. There's going to be an independent board who does the review, and the awards will be announced around May 1st. So we're really excited about it. We hope people look for creative ways to incorporate the arts into summer programming. And if anybody has any questions, you can reach me by email, which Miriam will post, as well as grants@thebeth.org. Thank you.
Oh, Stephanie, we do have a hand raised. Rick, if you want to go ahead and ask a question, and I just put Stephanie's email in there, but I forgot the M at the end, so apologies for that.
There's no M, it's .co.
Oh, there's not. Oh, okay. All right, never mind.
Oh, good.
Go ahead,
I just
Rick.
didn't know what. Okay, good morning. I didn't know there was a vulnerable youth, exactly what that looked like, and as far as what that looked like as far as the Christian components of that. Or
so the idea is that with a Christian component, that it is sharing a ministry with a child, with the children. It can be whatever you feel that it looks like. It does not have to be. It's not prescriptive, but there is also resources for arts organization who may not have a Christian component to it through the Child Evangelism Fellowship, who can come in and do programming for you free of charge, which would be an hour a day for 5 consecutive days. So it's almost like a vacation Bible study type of situation. So there are support for that if you'd like. And this is the funder's interest in that. And so that would be free of charge to you. Also to note, in the budget, in terms of allocations, there will be a requirement that the budgets do show that there is paid services for arts organizations if it is a non-arts organization who's the primary funder.
And artists as well, right? Not just arts organizations. Yeah, correct. So artists and arts organizations.
And we've had some questions before where the question is also like, what is the arts component? And again, we're leaving it up to people. They know how to best reach their youth. And so we're not prescriptive on that as well. And this is the first time we're doing this adventure. So we're trying to learn from each other and be collaborative and just trying to feel it out and work together on it.
We have 2 more questions. Charlie, you had your hand raised. I'm going to let you go ahead and take the floor.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So can the arts organization apply for the grants?
Yeah.
Okay, and we would apply to the Bethlehem Center?
Yes, so, it's your typical grant where, there are some limitations of who can apply, but, we want it to be 501c3 or church affiliated or something of those, of that matter. What we want also, and churches are eligible.
Okay.
I saw a little pop-up here. So you would be able, what we're really interested is to reach children that have some who are vulnerable, and being able to reach people and to meet them where they are.
Okay, can the program be virtual?
It's preferred in person. That's the preference, but everything will be considered. And I'm not on the review board, nor is Reggie Smith, who's the executive director of the Bethlehem Center. So we're very cautious to say what actually will be awarded, since we are not on the review committee, but we do know that it is preferred to be in person. Because last summer, there were still a lot of programs that took place in summer, and we've learned that children have just been through, with COVID, such isolation, and that the human touch really is important. But again, we understand that with COVID, sometimes that's not possible.
Thank you.
We had a question in the chat box. There's not a link for the grant online, but Stephanie, can we say that it's okay for folks to email you for more information? Is that
Yes,
okay?
and I did forward you the document in your email this morning to make sure that you have the copy.
Okay, great.
So feel free to post it.
Thank you. Another question is, are churches eligible like a camp, like a church that does rodeo camps?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other questions for Stephanie? No? What's the deadline?
The deadline, let me just double check myself since it is before my lunchtime. The grant application is April 1st.
Okay, so coming up soon.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have individual conversations with people. We've been talking to lots of groups of people. There's some very creative ideas out there, and sometimes you have questions about your specific situation. So feel free to shoot me an email. We'll have a phone conversation and talk through it.
Great, thank you so much, Stephanie. And as she said, I've posted her email, and also feel free to be in contact with me. I do have information on this grant opportunity. So if there's no other questions, Stephanie, I'll let you head out and get to your next meeting. I want to come.
Everybody.
Thanks so much for being here. Okay, I want to go back. There was a question from John Bader about, for Tim specifically, that I'm trying
Yes.
to find.
Yeah, I saw that. It was about filmmakers needing fiscal sponsors. And John, the answer to that is yes. Individuals cannot apply to or I should say, we cannot fund individuals directly with grants. So individuals working on projects can, of course, be paid in some instances from our grant funds, but we have to have a sponsoring organization, a fiscal organization. That's a part of the application, is identifying who those sponsors are.
We have another question. Is there a maximum request amount for the general grant?
There is not a maximum request amount. We're sort of limited by what we have in our budget for the general grant round every year. So ballparking, it's something like $70,000 total for all of the grants that we fund through the general grant round. That can vary a bit year to year, but that's a ballpark estimate for your information. What limits I mean, again, there's not a set maximum amount. It is, that would be determined by the number of successful applications that we're funding and what is in the grant fund for us in that particular round. I can tell you, generally speaking, they tend to be in the $10,000, $12,000 to $15,000 range. They can be smaller than that. We have funded larger grants than that, but again, it depends on, this is determined by the reviewers every year. We have independent reviewers for our general grant round. And it's based on how many applications we have and what the total ask is and what we have available to fund.
I think we have 2 hands raised. Christina, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure. The ongoing grant that you mentioned, that was the $2,500 grant. So would an organization be eligible for only one of those, or could they, if they needed more than 2,500, could they apply for more than one?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is per program. So we wouldn't have multiple opportunity grants for a single program, say broken up into different grants throughout the year. The idea there is to fund and also to turn that around sort of more quickly, so we can get you funding. It's a less laborious, less time-consuming process to apply and to turn those funds around. The idea is we're funding maybe smaller projects, but also turning them around, as I said, more quickly. But we wouldn't support the same program with multiple opportunity grants. It would be a single grant for a single project. That doesn't mean that an organization couldn't receive multiple ones. Again, it's a sort of program by program basis, and also determined by just not only eligibility, but what we have left in the opportunity grant fund and what we've awarded sort of year to date.
What approximately is the turnaround between, because you said you work with the organization, so what would be the turnaround from the application and
Yeah, that is a question. To get an average on what that turnaround time is, I'd really rather have our grant staff answer that, because I know they're used to working pretty closely with applicants, especially in the opportunity grant round, because again, that's, that application process is not nearly as long a process. We've turned some of those grants around inside of a month. So if you've got the program idea in mind and know when you'd like to execute it or when you're planning to execute it, I would encourage you, just reach out and we can talk about the timeliness of getting the grant turned around. But it's just a simpler process to administer, and it's a simpler process to apply for, and we can get the grant funding to you a lot quicker than through the general grant round. But again, the eligibility is different. They're for smaller organizations and, generally speaking, smaller projects.
Thank you.
Carly, did you still have your hand raised, or was that from Stephanie?
That's from the before.
Okay, all right, great. Do we have any other questions for Tim?
I see one in the chat, which I'm happy to address. So again, the way we distinguish arts from humanities projects, there can be fine lines there. And in fact, we don't preclude arts projects. So we work closely with the Arts Commission and a lot with arts organizations around the state. The arts, in the broadest sense, certainly are part of the humanities. So the humanities can really run the gamut, sort of anything related to the human experience we would, deem to be humanistic. Where we sort of make that distinction for the purpose of answering this question is when the project is solely performative or creative, if it is about scheduling a musical performance or a dance performance, a stage play, any number of things. When it's performative or creative completely, we can't fund that. That would be what we consider an arts project. And we refer you there, to the Arts Commission and other arts funders. Even if a project has a performative or creative component, but when it also has analysis, interpretation, if you have public discussion, if you're doing say screening a film, here's an example that's come up in the past few years, screening a film for a public program, we would sort of deem to be performative. If you have a film historian on site who's talking about that film in the context of film history or social history, then that becomes a humanities and arts project, and that would be eligible for us to support. So again, there has to be something critical, analytical, that sort of examination along with the creative component for us to consider that to be a humanistic arts project. If that's clear, you can let me know if it isn't.
Go ahead, Christina.
Okay, thank you. Would an organization that charges admission be exempt?
No, you can charge admission. That would change a bit of the cost share requirements. So if you're an organization that charges admission, we have different cost sharing requirements. I should say cash match is a bit different. So again, our grants personnel can talk about the finer points of that, but it would not exempt you from applying or from receiving a grant. Again, it wouldn't make you ineligible. It could potentially change some of the match requirements for that specific project.
Thank you.
There's also a chat question about for-profits applying, and this is fairly new for us. So you might want to talk to our grants staff about this. Yeah, LLCs. So small for-profit businesses wouldn't necessarily be exempt. Again, we'd like to talk to you about the nature of the business and what you're doing and the program itself, because what we're interested in supporting is free, accessible public programming. So when it's a humanities program that's open to everyone and there's not an admission fee charged to access it, it's possible that a for-profit business could sponsor that grant. Again, the finer points of that we would want to talk with you about and look at the grant proposal with you and what the project is that you're proposing doing.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim, for getting really nitty-gritty into those questions and for being here and for sharing this information with our community. As Tim said, please feel free to visit their website. I did plug it in the chat and reach out to his staff with any more specific questions. And we hope to have you back on here again, Tim, and please enjoy the rest of your day. And I will invite our next speaker.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Tim. Next up, we have Suzanne Ford, who's with the Performing Arts League, and she's going to be announcing some new grants programs for youth arts programs and also scholarships to support young performers. So welcome, Suzanne. And if you want to take the floor, please go ahead.
I have to unmute. Thank you. Yes, I don't know how many people, you have to just excuse me. I'll speak clearly, but I have a little bout with Bell's palsy. So my speaking is a little weird. I'm okay, but I'll enunciate. It's not exactly what I anticipated, but there it is. The Performing Arts League is a nonprofit, local. We support youth involvement in the performing arts in the Chattanooga and Hamilton County area. We have been around since 2011, so we're actually celebrating our 10th year. And we're just a group of interested people, some retired, some professional, who want to just make sure that our young artists, our young aspiring artists have an opportunity to pursue their talent and their studies. So we're in a 501c3, and we're primarily a granting organization. Between 2014 and 2020, we've awarded $150,000 to individuals and Chattanooga area performing arts organizations specifically for their youth programs. And that includes the Chattanooga Ballet and the Chattanooga Theater Center Youth Theater Program, the Chattanooga Symphony and Opera Youth Orchestra, Ballet Tennessee, the Chattanooga Girls Choir, the Chattanooga Boys Choir, Only Men Allowed, their summer program, the Clarinet Choir, Chattanooga, and the Howard School Band. We've helped purchase some of their instruments. And the Kiwanis Club built a musical playground, and we helped fund that. And we've also helped the piano lab at one of the high schools. So we've done group things, and then individuals apply to us for funding for study in the summer, often a dance intensive, private study with teachers, programs all over, and we fund as much as we can. So we sort of spread our funding around. This year, we're a little bit low on what we have because, of course, we couldn't do our normal fundraising last year. What we do during the year is we're a membership organization, and interested people in Chattanooga join us. Every month, we have a program where we invite leaders of the various groups. We've had presentations by the Chattanooga Ballet. Last month, we had a presentation from the Chattanooga Youth Symphony. They did a rehearsal for us. So that happens once a month. We have a showcase of talent in the fall where we have a little, we present different of our funding, of our funders, of our fundees from coming. They each do a little presentation, and we have a fashion show in the spring, which is our big fundraiser, and we're hoping to have it this year in the fall. So each year we give out somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 between the groups and the individuals. And basically the guidelines are the scholarships are to encourage the participation in programs that recruit, develop, or train young students in all disciplines of the performing arts, including dance, theater, and instrumental and vocal music. There's an application on our website. I can share the screen and show our website if you want. And that's what we do. Our grant applications for individuals is March 30th. The programs we have for groups, I think the deadline is just on us. But I can certainly, if a group is interested, I can find out if we have a little wiggle room in the deadline. I'm one for pushing the envelope, but some people. So that's our program. We're basically there to just focus attention on our young talent, of which there is a lot. And I know that our scholarships have really been we've had people go on to Juilliard, maybe our recipients have gone on to, continue their education. And we're just happy to do it, follow their progress, and be visible in the community. I think what I'm grateful to be here is to let you all know that we're here. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I apologize for the speaking, but yeah, if you have any questions, The application is available on our website, which is, and I can type that in the chat.
I plugged it into the
You
chat
did.
already.
Okay, great.
Mhm,
Okay,
yeah.
good. Good. That's right. I forgot. I'm used to being a host, so.
Yeah. So,
Not to take your job.
no worries. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask
ask.
Suzanne directly.
Yes, I have a question. I am looking at the application online right now, and I'm just wondering where we send the application when we're finished.
Well, that's a very good question. I believe you send it to our email. I'm just gonna go quickly I'm still here, but let me quickly take a look and see if it says it anywhere. If not, I will ask the question of the person who's in charge and where am I? Here I am. And see if I can,
Jennifer said on the application there is an email.
Just kidding, just kidding. I
Oh,
was
okay.
scholarship one, ignore me.
Okay, maybe
You got
is
I
the
was trying
is
to
the
message.
scholarship and the grant, is it the same person who manages it?
yeah.
Okay,
Is it there?
yes. Jennifer, do you mind throwing that email into the chat?
It is at the bottom of the grant one as well.
Okay, I see it now. Karen Murphy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Karen Murphy is the person in charge. And if you, because I'm coming sort of at the last minute, if you want to find out if she's can entertain another application for a group, as I said, the individuals, we have a couple of, I think till the end of the month, which is, and again, it's, I don't think it's not a terribly complicated application. But just to say, last year we had, we contributed to the Chattanooga Symphony Youth Orchestra's purchase of percussion equipment. We also fund string give funding for string theories outreach when they do that in the, I think it's in the winter. They go into they have a group go into the schools. We have the Alpine Crest Music Club, which is an after-school program. The Central High School Piano Lab. We helped them purchase a bunch of pianos. And that is really, the teacher who's in charge of that did a presentation. And it's really remarkable. And it's just opened up the lives of so many young people who might not have played a musical instrument otherwise. So that's an important factor for us as well. And we fund the Chattanooga Theater Center Youth Theater Program, the Christian Family Theater. We fund we contribute to the funding for their programs. So that's the kind of thing we're looking for.
Well, thank you so much, Suzanne, for sharing that great grant opportunity and for sharing all of the great programs that you guys are funding and students in our community. It's really great to hear that.
Is that a question for Mary about the Everett grant, or is that for somebody else? It's somebody else. Never
Yeah,
mind.
that was for me.
Okay. Is that something for me or somebody else?
It's for you.
Oh, okay, fine. Sorry. It really depends. I don't think we've ever funded an entire program. So it really is based on how many requests we get. But for granting, like last year, I think they asked us, they may have asked us, I think we contributed $1,500 to the percussion instrument purchase. The request was 15, and I think we gave them, maybe 1,000. So we try to match it. For the scholarships, we might fund half if it was the tuition or something for a summer intensive. So it really kind of is, we want to give a little bit to everybody, or as many as we can that we feel fit our guidelines.
We had one more question. I'm assuming your grant program covers individual lessons or music workshops, correct?
It could, yes, I believe so, yes. It depends on, like, we don't assess the program being requested.
Okay.
I don't know that we've given to, I think we have actually contributed to a program at the Chattanooga Youth Symphony Orchestra for lessons. So I would say apply and we'll, get it from there. Does that help?
Yes, that's a great answer. Does anyone have any last questions for Suzanne?
Well, it's great to meet you all and spread the word and visit our website. And if you'd like to work with us, join us as we're happy to have people with us.
Great, thank you so much. We're happy to have you on
Thank you.
as well.
Thank you.
All right, next, we're gonna switch gears and I'm gonna ask Jennifer Holder from the Chattery to come on, and she's gonna share about their new Jumpstart program. And Jennifer, if you wanna hop on.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So I'm Jennifer, as mentioned, from the Chattery. If you don't know what the Chattery is, we are a nonprofit here in Chattanooga, and we offer fun, affordable, and accessible learning for adults. So our classes range from free to, obviously there's cost associated depending on supplies and things like that. But we try to offer whatever we can at a low cost. I guess basically I'll very quickly say, what does that mean? Like, what classes? So we do personal development classes, like home organizing, which is on Saturday, or professional development classes like Excel or SQL or using LinkedIn. And of course, arts and crafts classes. Our classes are all taught by small businesses and artists here in Chattanooga. And all over the country now and world, because we're online. So we were previously obviously doing all of our classes in person, and like all of us sitting on the Zoom, we've all been sitting on Zooms for a year, and I have too, and I've learned a lot. So all of our classes are online. Hopefully with vaccines, we will be going back in person soon, but for now we are sticking to online. So anyway, moving on to why I'm really here, which is about Jumpstart. So I'm going to share my screen. Maybe. Okay. So this is just the website, thechattery.org/jumpstart. I did not make a fancy presentation, and I apologize. So basically, we started this in March. It's free to any artists or arts organizations, or if you're on the board of an arts organization, please feel free to sign up. And we're offering, all the classes are online. If you can't make it live, and we started this March 1st, or the beginning of March. So if you can't make it online, we are recording them and you can watch them. So you'd be able to catch up. So basically, Artsbuild is one of our partners, as you can see here, AVA, Association for Visual Arts, and Arts Forward Chattanooga. And it's provided for free, so we are paying the teachers through Tennessee Arts Commission, Arts Forward Chattanooga. And I should say, I know Monica had to jump off, but Arts Forward Chattanooga is a program that Artsbuild is a part of, as well as the Chattery, as well as 18 total organizations. And we went through a series, a few years of trainings, and we had a consultant and kind of figured out our next steps as younger organizations. And what came out of that is right before the shutdown, I don't know if anybody went to Bessie Smith, but we had a big meeting where we talked about ways that we could move the arts community forward. And one of the things that came out of it was actually Jumpstart, but thanks to a pandemic, it took a minute to get this up. But anyway, so all the classes are online. We got live closed captioning for people if you need it, or if you'd like it. And then if you don't have reliable internet access, Tech Goes Home is giving us some hotspots that we can set up for you. So there's that. And then if you go to the website, it's all of the classes are listed with the descriptions. I'm not going to read all of them, but today at 3, we do have Organic Marketing 101 with Shopify LA. So Shopify LA is offering their classes. You can do one-on-one consultations with them. And then tomorrow we've got Jordan Scruggs of Let's Talk Consulting. And then Sunday, using using passion and expression for mental health. So I have definitely struggled with mental health, I'll be honest, sitting here by myself with my dog all day. But so we just wanted to offer some classes that are also personal development to kind of help us with that. And Star is our star student. I see them on here. So so they've been coming to classes. Yeah, I guess that is the big part. We did do a survey to kind of figure out what people wanted, and the biggest thing was marketing and bookkeeping help. So we have done a few accounting classes, and we've got a ton of marketing stuff going on. But if you don't see something that you want to learn, we definitely will try to continue offering classes where we can throughout the rest of the year. So this does end at the end of April, but we try to offer free classes whenever we can, or and we actually are setting up one that's going to be specifically about ADA requirements for event accessibility. That will be in March and will be free to everyone. So so we'll offer those chances too. And I will stop sharing.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to chime in and directly ask Jennifer. Someone, Sam, posted that they've really enjoyed the Jumpstart, and it's been very, very informative and useful classes. So thanks for sharing that, Sam.
Yeah, and it's also good to see people I know that I have, like Rick, who I used to run into.
Joy shared that the marketing stuff has been really great. So if no one has any questions for Jennifer, like she said, please visit their website. I did put it in the chat box, and take advantage of these free classes and resources that are created just for you all. And I want to once again thank all of our speakers who joined us today, and also open it up for anyone who would like to make any additional announcements or share anything, any upcoming events that you'd like to promote to the group. This is that a time for that before we hop off. Does anyone have any announcements? Catherine reminded us that don't forget that Arts Build is accepting nominations until March 31st for the Ruth Holmberg Arts Leadership Award. Please visit our website, and she plotted the information in the chat box for more information about the criteria and the nomination process. Well, as always, it's a pleasure to see your lovely faces, and we look forward to seeing you all next month. One more announcement. Joy did announce that there is a virtual auction that the Clay Studio will be, I guess, hosting, and she did, oh, it's live now. Okay, it's a live auction, so maybe after this you can go check it out. And if anyone's interested in being one of our guest speakers, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope you all have a lovely weekend, and thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you guys next month. Bye.